Okay, so we're live. About 2 hours late than I expected, but I haven't been having anybody join me. Technically, because I'm reading a book and I'm reading chapter by chapter. If you find the live, you probably want to jump back and go through all the previous ones in order before you catch up with the lives. And my intention is to try to live for about an hour every evening at 9 p.m. Colorado time. That's Mountain Time. That is actually 8 p.m. California time, 10 p.m. Central, or 11 p.m. Eastern. So she got no opinion agents at all for the time that is in the Philippines. Sometime in the afternoon, pretty close to 5 p.m. in the afternoon. Just not, just at the point that I do not know the time that will be in the Philippines. 9 p.m. night. No, that was 9 a.m. Somewhere close at 10 a.m. or so. So the objective is to start at chapter 3 and continue. I can try to look forward from the commentary. I plan to add these and put them all back to back in one extremely long way. I'm assuming by the size of the book and the fact that I read out loud much slower than I read when I read to myself, that we're probably looking at 9 to 11 hours of reading time, reading it all. But I plan to edit out these little pieces and put it all in one long run. And then come at putting commentary in there within that long run with a different perspective. So the commentary can include pictures of diagrams that show are either captured from the PDF version of this book, which I finally found. So I said it's outside copyright protection and out of print. You can only use copies. I guess I should look a little closer and make sure that it is actually out of print. As far as I could tell, it was out of print. It should be outside the copyright limitation as well. So we can continue from chapter 3. Chapter 3, phenomenal success chances. Phenomenal chances for success. Of course, other rooms besides real estate may lead to riches, but one of the most, I'm going to bring that brings it up just a little bit more, maybe a little closer. Yeah, and that's still hitting a little. Can I adjust the mic? No, I can't do that. Okay. But most of the odds are heavy that you will be led astray. These roads may depend chiefly on lady luck, like uranium hunting or buying speculative oil stock, or they may offer more chances of failure than success, like starting a new business. Nominally, the greater your possible return, the greater your risk. But this is not true with real estate investment. Your chances for realty success are better than 4 to 1. Income property investment, which offers greatest average potential, also offers you better 400 chances for success risk. According to typical nationwide computations of the Federal Reserve Board of the Home Loan Bank Board in 1953, less than one non-farm home mortgage in 500 is foreclosed. These figures include neither high-risk farm and commercial foreclosures nor low-risk apartment and income properties. A comprehensive study of the Institute of life insurance shows that real estate held under foreclosure by all U.S. life insurance companies at the end of 1951 totaled 61 million. Only 0.316% of their 19 billion 314 million in outstanding mortgages. Thus, for each dollar mortgaged by insurance companies on all farm, commercial, home, and apartment properties, foreclosures average slightly under 1 in 300. Grouping the federal computation of only one foreclosure in 500 loans with the life insurance loan dollar figures of 1 in 300 gives an average estimate of one failure in 400. The foregoing figures include mortgaged homes, which provide no self-sustaining income and are more apt to be defaulted in case of death, job, or relocation of a breadwinner. They include farm and commercial properties, which are more dependent on personal capabilities of their owners. When you possess apartment rental properties that pays for itself, your odds will be considerably enhanced over the average odds for all properties. You can therefore safely gauge your chances for success with our recommended income property as better than 400 to 1. Your chances are better than 1600 to 1 compared to going into business. According to the study by the Department of Commerce, 4 out of 5 new businesses fail to survive 8 years. 50% go out of business within 2 years. Each year of successful business operation increases the chance of ultimate survival, but the odds are thus 4 to 1 that a new business will go broke. Contrast to these 4 to 1 odds in business with the 400 to 1 in property investment odds in your favor, this indicates that your chances for success in income property exceed by 1600 to 1 the chances in business. Why such a marked difference? Perhaps one reason is that while few invest in real estate without some study, home buyers blithely exchange their life savings for a business, feeling they are bound to succeed in a field where they have worked, or in a field where they think they will enjoy. Operating a business is determined by the Bureau. Operating a business, as determined by the Bureau of Internal Revenue, is basically a form of self-employment, with investment secondary. A business depends almost entirely upon individual idiosyncrasies and health. A bank will therefore seldom lend a business neophyte and will hold his loan application in pending file until he proves successful. The Internal Revenue Service recognizes rental income property, on the other hand, as a basic form of investment rather than a business. Income property is not so apt to fail because of personal whims, since it represents chiefly an investment in real estate, which requires only nominal part-time supervision. Business loans are governed chiefly by operating experience, while real estate loans are governed chiefly by the value of the property. Experience is usually mandatory in obtaining business loans, although desirable, is no more required on an income property loan than it is on a home loan. A lending institution will lend on the appraised value of income property, even when the owner is completely inexperienced. Witness all the complex and inexperienced widows and retired pensioners who have made profitable income property purchases with the aid of heavily institutional financing. A further comparison is going into business. Income property formula shows how you can expect an average return of 33.87% of your personal investment as long as you follow a sustained program of purchase, improvement, sale, and reinvestment. Perhaps it would be well to compare this average potential of expansion with business returns, the only other major field that offers a comparable pyramiding potential. As with income property, we will start with a nest egg of $2,500 and see how it grows in 20 years. Buying a business offers a 20.25% return. The Department of Commerce study cited above shows that the odds are 4 to 1 that a new business will go great. Starting anew with average luck, you would therefore wind up with nothing. But you might combine unique ability and experience with hard work and attain the 1 to 4 ratio of good luck. Studies shown below indicate that the average successful business earns a return of 20.25%. Business success usually requires self-employment for more hours than you would consent to work for someone else on a salary. And when ready to retire, you would normally find the business cannot be carried on successfully without your active full-time participation, nor could it continue by survivors, as attested in a partnership in partnership contracts, which in most cases exclude survivors from carrying on. In business partnerships, okay, I'm wondering if that means somebody is logging into my live and I had somebody else join me. I don't see anybody else. If there's anyone there, please speak up so I can see it. Still can't get it all up and on. And of course, I'm gonna pause this. I seem to have to release the restaurant. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about the delay. I don't think I did that quite right either. I couldn't really find it on, but why is it? This seems like what we have there because there's the mixed marker. We'd already read chapter 3, and we're about to start chapter 4. Oh well, let's continue where I left off. Business partnerships: when a partner dies, the surviving widow is usually forced to sell at book value, which may be far less than the market value. With an individually owned business, widows normally are also forced to abandon or sell at a loss. With income property, on the other hand, a widow normally finds little difficulty in continuing to operate her husband's investment. The average business, according to Representative 1948 study by the Department of Commerce, requires an investment of $9,500. Of this, one third, or 3,167, represents borrowed money, and two-thirds is composed of personal savings. This means that with $2,500 you already saved up at $50 a month, you would have to save for 6 more years to average to obtain the average capital invested in a business. The Department of Commerce study shows that surviving businesses in 1947 averaged a gross sales of 6.2 times the dollars invested, making the total average sales $58,000 on a $9,500 investment. Dun and Bradstreet standard ratios for retailing indicates an average net return after paying the management salaries and 2.5 cents for each dollar of sales. Applying the 2.5 cent ratio to $58,000 in sales would produce an investment return of $1,472.50. Subtracting 6% interest, $90.02 on the 3,167 borrowed, you would leave a net annual return of $1,282.48. Since you profit on your own and on borrowed money, these combined studies show that have, have a, you would earn a return of 20% and 20.20 and a fourth% on a personal investment. Suppose you follow the principle of most successful pyramiders and plow the investment return back into business, assuming that you would approximately average gross sales and net return income. Could you expect in 14 years of success, 20 years from your start with $2,500, you would accumulate a personal and net worth of $69,658 using your previously cited financing and production factors? This would produce a 20.25% annual return of $14,106. These summaries do not take into account the crippling effect of income taxes, which stop an otherwise thriving business more than any other form of investment. They show, however, the average business profit potential once the risks are surmounted. They also show the growth potential in pyramiding profits with the average of borrowed money. Okay. They show that however, the average business profit potential once the risks are surmounted. They also show the growth potential in pyramiding profits with the aid of borrowed money, and they help to explain amazing expansions like those of Rockefeller, Ford, and Kaiser. Mushrooming expansion is inherited in any substantial business success, the same as with the income property in investment. Real estate investment has a countrywide future. Now that we have briefly scrutinized business possibilities. It might be well to take a broad look at the future of real estate investment. What is the overall picture for real estate income property? These opportunities limited to small area, or in the future opportunities countrywide? Rent, Rental income property demand is expected to rise continually, with mushrooming metropolitan populations throughout the United States. The annual total housing has consistently increased about a million units a year since removal from World War II breaks. Even even the business recessions of 1949, 1953 to 54, and 1957 to 58 failed to stop the business failed to stop housing's substantial growth. These recessions affected rental property less than any other industry, in most cities having no measurable adverse effect on vacancy ratios. In fact, when FHA financing on individual homes was curtailed, lenders poured an even higher percentage of funds into apartments. Albert M. Cole, administrator of the U.S. Housing and Home Financial Agency, in 19 in November 8, 1955 Miami speech to the U.S. Savings and Loan League, estimated the dwelling units would continue to build at a rate of 1,200,000 per year, or a little higher. Robert L. Mann of the Federal Home Loan Bank Board states that there will be more than 10 million new American households between 1968 and 1975, creating a huge demand for apartments. W. M. Kiplinger, on his Boom and Inflation Ahead, previously cited under the heading of housing boom, the biggest ever, an average of 1.5 million housing units per year in the 1960s, 2 million in 1970s, and 1.5 million in the 80s. What are the what are the prospects for the lucrative field of improving existing dwellings? Vice President Richard M. Nixon, in his October 19, 1955 speech to an Investment Bankers Association in New York, forecast, in the next 10 years, America will need the replacement of 5 million housing units and reconditioning of 15 million more at a cost of $24 billion. In 1968, Secretary Robert C. Weaver of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development stated that existing housing in the next 10 years should be rehabilitated at 100 times the rate of the previous 10 years. One reason that the rising population has such a marked effect on housing is that in the each newlywed family calls for close to 3 times as much capital outlay for a dwelling unit, whether bought or rented, as for all other expenditures combined. Various estimates place the total average of 1955 requirement for new marriage as approaching $15,000, including housing, furniture, clothing, transportation, and incidentals. Of, of this, housing approximate, approximates 11,000, and all other expenditures 4,000. It is accepted reality axiom that land values rise whether the population wherever the population increases. The value of improved property will each individual improved property will rise accordingly, as long as buildings are soundly maintained and not permitted to deteriorate. Early American real estate giants like Astor, Gillette, Rhinelander in New York, Field in Chicago, and Longworth in Cincinnati all owed the fantastic growth of their fortunes to rapidly expanding economies in which cow pastures were converted to commercial properties in a comparatively few years. This type of purchase founded Another sound axiom for land buyers: buy farms by the acre in the path of city growth and hold up till the land can be sold as city lots. Since practically the entire country is expected to experience population increases, real estate is now considered a sound investment throughout most of the United States. Investors like Texans Murchison and Richardson, previously mentioned, have bought property in all parts of the country. Roger Stevens, another example, moved his major operations from Detroit to New York to buy the world's most valuable single piece of real estate, the Empire State Building, for $51 million. After selling for a profit of several millions, jumped out to San Francisco to pick up with Seattle Associates a group of properties valued at 17 million, being liquidated by a syndicate. On 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 this latter deal, incidentally, Stevens outbid San Francisco's Ben Swig and myself, who were negotiating a joint offer. Other things being equal, the best opportunities awaited in cities of the of greatest population increase, either nominally or percentage-wise. But there, but there is opportunity wherever the population goes upward rather than downward. As an example of continuing expansion trends, interesting forecasts of population growth between 1958 and 1970 are shown on the following regional map taken from the W. M. Kiplinger's Boom and Inflation Ahead, previously cited. The table of U.S. Census forecasts of population growth from 1967 to 1985 as follows indicates increasing increases in every state except for West Virginia. When investing in housing to buy prime to buy a prime necessity to buy a prime necessity of existence, the Department of Commerce estimates the 1968 housing value at approximately $700 billion. This surpasses by a next highest of any individual and exceeds the $600 billion total for all 1,200 corporations listed on the New York Stock Exchange. The food and clothing industry, which involve the other two prime necessities of life, trail far behind. To with, keep up with inherent demand, your chief concern will be to prevent your holdings from becoming outdated by staying abreast of current trends on price, convenience, and appearance. Sellability may fluctuate with inflation and recession, but your real estate will always retain an intrinsic value, which income forecasts cannot destroy. Riches are impossible for those who are hopelessly obsessed with security. I mentioned above cases of several present-day successes, including my own comparatively modest achievement of becoming a millionaire. In spite of this, a sincere friend who is an outstanding executive in the life insurance field ad- advises, according to all the research information my company sends me, it is absolutely impossible to build a substantial estate. The only means even to provide security through the only means even to provide security is through life insurance. My friend has arrived at above average state of security, but he is still searching for financial independence. Since the protection is the chief purpose of his life insurance, investment is in such insurance uh, to such an insurance man is secondary. Your insurance representative, like your banker, will guide you by his exclusive training. He is obsessed with the security considerations and indoctrinated to make funds as insured by safety as possible. Insurance provides a maximum estate for your survivors in case you die, but predominantly odds destined your living to a ripe old age. The average American at age 25, according to Federal Office of Vital Statistics, can expect to live past 70. In increasing age odds to your total life expectancy, why not chart your main course to get the most out of your prospective years? It is wise to plan for probable eventualities. It is to, tragic to toil uh, and safely and safe chiefly for death when all the time you seek is an abundant life. Business and professional men whose chief asset is their personal production may load heavily with insurance when they fail to make life-sustaining investments. If you want to follow a consistent investment plan that leads to wealth, you should consider life insurance. You should consider life insurance chiefly for protection to tide survivors over for emergencies. In case of heavy mortgage insurance provides additional safeguard, paying off loans in case of death of the breadwinner. Insurance as an investment pays only 1 out of 5 who is unable to save by any other method. As a method, as mentioned in Chapter 1, banks and insurance companies prosper only through utilizing your savings. Suppose you put all your money into a savings account and life insurance. After deducting necessary expenses, where do they place the funds? They invest a major portion in real estate, chiefly in the form of mortgage loans. According to the Institute of Life Insurance, real estate mortgages have been a major area of investment for life insurance funds down through the years. An estimate prepared by the American Bankers Association shows approximately a 50% cumulative total invested in mortgage loans by all the banks and insurance companies from time deposit from time deposits, primitive repurchasable capital, and policy reserves. Federal Reserve Bank Federal Reserve Board figures reveal that by 1968 the total mortgages approximated $200 billion, considerably surpassing their other major investments in securities and commercial loans. Foregoing figures indicated that real estate mortgages represent a major investment preference of both banks and insurance companies, proving that their officers select real estate as their soundest paying investment. They are willing to invest in property through loans considerably more than I would when we borrow. Banks and insurance companies own billions in insurance. As mentioned above, most of their property investments are made by means of real estate mortgages. This gives them the margin of safety, which is the difference between the bank value and the loan. You can also operate with large safety margin by specializing. As lending agencies concentrate on mortgages, you can concentrate on properties that will respond to nominal cost to improvements, which will greatly enhance value. This field this is the field that makes most real estate fortunes. After improvements, you can frequently secure, as I have, a new loan for the amount equal to or greater than the total outlay for the original purchase plus improvements. This gives you a safety margin between the total cost of the property value as great as the usual margin between the loan and the market value. Although the the general, uh, although the general economy may fluctuate, this cushion makes your investment as safe as the banks or the insurance companies. Your success is enhanced when you control your investment. Your bank with the investment property is secured because you retain control of it. In contrast to those who attempt to pyramid with stocks, re- relinquish control of their investment funds, except for those who choose when to buy and sell. Hired management chooses expansion, improvement, and retrench steps to be taken. Operating decisions concerning the firms in which they invest are entirely out of the stockholders' hands. Many, of course, made money in stocks. Some have heated analysts who have made comparatively consistent winning strikes. Many have lost. A study of the Kroll's Foundation of Research in Economics at Yale have shown that if you followed the suggestions of a particular stock analyst for 5 years, you would have broken about even from the standpoint of capital. Even success, even experts expect analysts are prone to enumerate their successful selections and forget their flops. By comparison, you can retain personal control at all stages in the selection, operation, improvement of your income property. The scientific and most successful farmer chooses for his greatest benefit the seeding and cultivation practices which will produce the maximum harvest. So at all times you can select and consummate the property improvements which inherently will produce the most bountiful profits. The sub- subsidized growth of metropolitan areas throughout the United States promises continuously increasing demand for rental housing. This offers an ever-expanding choice uh, from the real estate investment opportunities which make you a millionaire. Part 2: Buying your first property. Chapter 4: Shopping for shopping for the $10,000 income property. As population growth increases economic expansion, any growing city warrants consideration for rental housing investment. Your success will be most assured if the speculative gamble of increased location value if the speculation gamble of increased location value, as in buying a vacant lot, is subordinated to the primary objective of an earned gain from making profitable improvements. Although economic expansion as a chief growth factor for early real estate fortunes, this factor fails to fails to third and importance of today's financiers with maximizing first with maximum financing first and property improvement second. Besides physical improvement of property, you can also increase value as you gain experience by improving operations and an objective which will cover which I will cover in later chapters. Succeeding chapters will also detail information on appraisal, purchase, and operation of larger properties. This is the next two chapters. We deal chiefly with buying a small, run-down property in the $10,000 range. Okay, so that's 40 minutes so far. Commercial property is risky for the new investor. With large holdings to cushion against loss of income and individual property, various properties might prove safe investments as long as their shortcomings are accounted for. Apartment houses require a minimum of employees and a ratio to gross income. Hotels and office buildings, which may otherwise offer a good return, nominally require a high ratio of employees, being more subject to labor stop stoppages and growing tendencies of labor costs to develop profits. They can successfully be operated only by experienced managers. They are considered by the Internal Revenue as a business operation, not primarily investment like in the apartment house. Large commercial units like retail stores and industrial apartments offer a good return with minimum supervision when leased to established businesses. But on the termination of a lease, they may suffer long vacancies with no income even to pay the mortgage. A successful business may give up a lease because of a need for larger space, and a failing business is apt to abandon a lease. Commercial properties are therefore far more risky than apartments for the new investor. They are a sound investment only for the owner with many holdings, who has other income to offset the loss of a possible vacancy. Commercial property might offer considerable opportunity for capital gain from enhanced location value, being more subject to development trends, but for the same reason entails a greater risk of loss in value. Rental dwellings are the safest realty investment. By following the lead of 7 million owners in the private housing industry and concentrating your investments as I do in rental dwellings, you can heed the financial admonition against putting all your eggs in one basket. Each dwelling unit constitutes a separate income producer to which you can give individual attention. By alert management, you can hold vacancies in soundly bought apartments and flats to a negligible factor, even less than national averages between 2 and 5% by the Department of Commerce in various surveys between 1954 and 1968. In order to produce the capital gain required to expedite expansion, property should offer minimum possibilities to increase value. The property should be a basically sound design and construct so that you can make improvements that will bring the buildings up to date at less than total cost in one new construction. To complete successfully, it is obvious that the cost of the older building plus the cost of renovation must total less than the cost of a comparable new building. You can make market transformation at minimal cost by such improvements as painting, landscaping, replacing antiquated fixtures, and modernizing surfaces. Architectural features. Details of money-making improvements are covered in chapters 7 and 8. The property then bought should pay a fair return, at least sufficient for mortgage payments and expenses, and should promise sustained and possible increased rents. As previously mentioned, big property buyers usually demand a return of at least 20% on their personal investment. In addition to paying all expenses, including mortgage payments, even a small property buyer should expect an income to pay off expenses and the mortgage and to net a return of not less than 6% on your personal investment after the mortgage is paid off. The property should return a minimum of 6% on the total invested by you and the lender. Each mortgage principal payment, although borne by property, increases a net estate to the extent that it reduces an outstanding loan balance. In addition to working towards the maximum expansion, you should plow back all the possible property earnings to speed improvement. Thus, you can resell the lease with the least delay and reinvest the profits in a larger property. Such turnovers can pyramid your holdings rapidly. In a minimum number of years, the property should be large enough to pay all expenses, including mortgage payments, and also produce a net in-pocket income sufficient to warrant your early retirement from your present corporation. Competitive rentals are your safest housing investment. To minimize vacancies, it is always better to aim for rent somewhere under rather than over the market. Comparative competitive rental housing should cost the tenant less than the average housing expense for the area. For example, 1960 housing census showed that the metropolitan areas with more than 50,000 population, housing expenses averaged $85. The the general level in the national uh, basis was $60 for apartments without bedrooms, using beds, using full, using folding beds of the wall, closet, or sofa type, and ranged $100 for apartments with bedrooms. Owners of the highest quality rental units design this executive incomes may be in a safe position for sounding financing. Good location, attractive buildings and grounds, and desirable interiors. However, high rents are usually hardest hit with vacancies in times of severe competition because of the small percentage of prospective tenants in the moderately competitive retail market. 1954, for example, luxury apartments were second only to the undesirable conservation and their high vacancy ratio. As competitive increases in the rental luxury level declines. Rent should not exceed average weekly take-home pay. In the industrial area, all rental units will suffice for sufficient vacancies. If rents exceed the average worker's weekly take-home pay, a principal violation by some investors to their sorrow. As another example, the Department of Labor estimates that the average factory worker on a national basis in 1968 earned $108 a week. The average included in the South, where the median wage is considerably lower than that was the rest of the nation. In an area where the average scale of approximacies average a monthly rent of 125 would result in a frequent turnover and would result in frequent turnovers. In the same area, a rent of $100 would encourage a $110 would encourage a full house as long as the housing units compete for convenience and appearance with other available units. With this in mind, the safest property you can buy will meet competitive and pay their fair return on the investment of rentals wage under the weekly wage of the average potential renter. For fastest progress, it is for the fastest progress, it is important, particularly in the first steps, to invest the highest self-supporting property the average funds can buy. Although financing fluctuates, you can normally borrow about 3 times your investment and still keep mortgage payments as low low enough for the property to pay for itself. Assuming you have saved $2,500, you could buy the property costing $10,000, as in step 1, chapter 2. The $5,000 investment, you look for a property in the $2,000 range with a $10,000 for a $40,000, and with $10,000 for a $40,000 property. Larger purchases will be larger purchases will be examined later, but for the present, we will scrutinize the market for the prospective buyer who now has $2,500 to invest. How how will you find your property, your $10,000 income property? The two chief leads on property are for sale are: one, newspaper advertising; two, real estate brokers. Most property buyers consult newspapers, classified or display ads to become acquainted with various brokers. Check the classified section for pertinent ads in your price range. Then contact the realtor who has the listing. You can you condition the broker to serve you more wholeheartedly if you concentrate his attention asking by answering his ad, rather than approaching him initially with nothing specific to discuss. Answering an ad makes you a hot prospect, whereas a cold whereas a cold turkey approach might draw more indifferent responses, glassing, glassing you with the curious dead-end shoppers who are merely killing time. After discussing the property advertised, tell the broker what kind of buy you are interested in. Do not begrudge the sales fee, which will be paid by the seller. The broker will earn his commission by handling many details of the transaction and by negotiating a better deal and securing better financing than you might. It is surprisingly it is surprising how often a good broker can secure additional funds to consummate a deal. It may first appear that the sale will collapse for the lack of financing. Sometimes the best buy will be found through an ad. A sample survey shows that one-third of the com- completed real estate transactions were initiated by newspaper ads. Often an ad will lead to a realtor who keeps his best buys up his sleeve so other brokers cannot learn about them. Local customs vary. In some areas, listings are tied up predominantly by individual brokers on an exclusive basis, so that the property cannot be sold without paying a commission to the broker who has the listing. In others, most listings may be open, so that any selling broker will earn the commission. In most areas, both types of listings will be made, and the broker who has a listing and the one who sells the property will cooperate by sharing the commission. But advertising exposes a hot listing, and an unscrupulous broker may steal the sale. Besides, if the property appears to be especially good buy, the broker who obtained the listing feels there is a good chance to make the entire commission instead of sharing it with another broker. Ads are not only to sell a listed property, but also to keep the prospects for other properties, thus serving for the mutual benefit of other sellers and prospects. A realtor whose ad interests you will usually have several listings, sometimes better buys than the property advertised. At each stage of progress, in order to select a particular property to meet our specifications, we will choose up-to-date listings and shop current real estate markets. All but new real estate New property can usually be bought for between 10 and 25% less than the asking price. Also, sound purchases are often made with more than 75% financing. So you should check the ads in which the property is listed between 10,000 and 15,000, where it appears the down payment may not exceed the 2,500 you have. Looking over four columns of ads under the rental dwellings for sale in a leading newspaper, leading newspaper, the Metropolitan, we can find that our requirements 10 ads which merit further tracking. Earnest shopping beats dry runs. There is not too much advantage in dry runs, just looking at property from the outside, except to consider improvement possibilities. This would give you no idea of community and district price ranges, which will be an important part of your education. It is fine to appraise the various districts in which to see which suits you. You might as well use the same time you, to the best advantage by shopping in earnest. In 1955, I served as chairman of the Manse Committee of the First Congressional Church of Oakland, California, where we were charged with finding a home for our minister, Dr. Clarence Riedenbach, in the general neighborhood of the church. We could have spent many fruitless meetings discussing price ranges and could have drawn no valid. We spent many fruitless meetings in discussing price ranges and could have drawn no valid conclusions. We let our wants to be known to various realtors. The minister's wife selected from their listings 7 suitable homes, enough to take up a full Saturday of shopping. Before we started, none of us had any concept of price levels for the type of home wanted. By the end of the day, one day shopping, every member of our committee of 5 had formulated a solid idea of market prices and values of the quality of home sought. Though perhaps hesitant to plunge, you should find it just as easy to draw some conclusion once you get started. After a dozen or so contacts, you will begin to know values in the price range where you have set. Before making your first purchase, you will normally look you will normally want to look over many listings in various districts. Thus, you can observe whether the particular district is one on the down or upgrade. Although you may look at several weeks or months before selecting a suitable buy, be alert from the start. A choice bargain might appear when you answer your first ad, as the first trout in the pool may strike when you first cast a lure to test the distance. The ad shows that some properties can be bought for as little as 10% down. One $10,000 property for $1,000. Why not buy after saving up only 1,000, as I did, and get started faster? You should start as soon as possible and start financing as heavily as possible. Always with the same proviso that the mortgage payments can be handled from the property income after expenses are paid. Sometimes the best buy will demand less, sometimes more than the minimum down. Then in citing example in citing examples, I prefer to choose the conservative, which you can more readily equal to accept. You will want to mark all ads with the requirements, rating them by degree of interest, and then contact the advertiser for each ad. We will list more interest. We will list more interesting than 10 ads and look more desirable and undesirable features as we check over the respective properties. The following ads are quoted verbatim, except for minor changes, such as names, addresses, and telephone numbers. Old, beat up, and rough, no foundation. This might be just what we're looking for. Brutal advertising is used to attract attention. Old, beat up, and rough, no foundation. A 2-unit, $9,950. Old, beat up, and rough, but in good district, above Broadway and High Avenue. Tremendous possibilities. Phone number. This might be just what we're looking for. Brutal advertising used to attract attention. The property might not be quite as bad as described, so we phone the listed number, obtain the address, we drive up to the property. However, we meet with shock in the four part of the lot of a 2-story wooden building with 4 rooms on the ground floor and 2 bedrooms on the upper. The front gable is high peaked and trimmed with ornate carving 50 years out of date and difficult to camouflage without high expenditure. Several windows are broken, drawing attention to large cracks in the upper corners of the casings, clues which cast doubt on the structural soundness. Screens are hanging loose except for the one which has fallen to the ground. A weedy gravel drive leads to a jerry-built cottage in back of the lot. Papers are scattered over the yard. There are which is bare of trees, shrubs, or grass. Obviously, no one has lived in the property for several months. A bad sign if rental units are not occupied and drawing income. When for sale, there usually is something radically wrong which makes the property unrentable. The quoted rents may be too high, or the property may have slipped under the slum line and become unfit to live in. Construction knowledge is unnecessary. It is not necessary for income property buyer to have detailed knowledge of construction. Along with most property investors, you can be content with surface examinations and can base final remodeling conclusions on the advice of architects and contractors. Experienced owners usually have foundation inspected by an expert before consummating the purchase. I always have a qualified contractor give me a cost estimate if there is any question regarding the approximate cost to remedy the apparent deficiencies. Until you gain experience, you can obtain expert advice regarding even routine improvements on which you later will be able to make fairly accurate horseback estimates. Most contractors will give an approximate estimate without charge. Where they stand, a good chance of securing work. There is no object in calling an expert until you have selected a property you are ready to buy and are prepared to give a contract. If you purchase the property, purchase and improvement costs can be worked out satisfactorily. Additional points to safeguard low purchase will be covered as we proceed with shopping. Now, in later chapters, meanwhile, you can reject obvious poor buys like this property and the next with their major glaring faults. Rehabilitation costs here would be prohibitive. Be in examining any real estate, all visible flaws should be regarded as possible indications of poor construction and or advanced deterioration, which may be costly or remedied. Even a beautiful appearing building may be miraculously held together by a thin shell of plaster, with most of the foundation being underpinned, foundation and underpinning eaten away by dry rot and termites. Even the most beautiful appearing building can be miraculously held together by a thin shell of plaster, with the with most of the foundation and underpinning eaten away by dry rot and termites. On the other hand, invites invites vandalism. A basically desirable property may appear hopelessly dismal only because of minor problems like broken windows. Before rejection of a property on on a on a surface examination looks broken down, it is well to make a thorough inspection as long as the property may otherwise be of interest. We will check this first advised property further by making up our minds. The small cottage in the back of the lot composed of 3 rooms, which have been converted from 2 connecting garages. One garage has been divided into a living room and kitchen, and the other into a bedroom and bath. The four floors, the floors are gray concrete from the old garage floor, partially covered with the cheapest battle, battered linoleum prep. Thus, a pane of the only front window is black, 6-inch vent pipe connected to 6-inch vent pipe connected by a bulky circulating gas heater is located inside the window. This obvious inept conversion of typical units to unappetizing draw tenants, even with cheap rent. In the back of the cottage, a 4-inch vent from the kitchen gas stove protrudes from a small window. We glance under the cottage's back porch, and then and, un, and then under the sagging back porch of the to the main building to the main foundation. There are no concrete or bricks under the sills. Only the only foundation consisted of rotting wooden mud sills. This explains why the doorways and windows look off square and why doors sag, although sagging doors may sometimes si- signify only easily repair and used hinges. Without inspecting the main interior, it is obvious that the cost of rehabilitation would be prohibitive. Before remodeling, would be an inadequate investment. Before remodeling, it would be necessary to level and square the building by jacking up and installing an adequate foundation. This alone, if contracted, would cost $5,000, depending on the problems that develop and how badly structure is damaged. Restructuring a junker may cost more than a new building. The converted cottage would no doubt be condemned upon city inspection. Often it would be cheaper to build a new and reconstruct and modernize with a structure. Some short-sighted workhorses buy such cheap buildings called junkers, so debilitated that they can make a profit on rehabilitation only with the progenitus person labor. Against my advice, a retired carpenter who of 70 bought a $6,000 wreck or a 5-bedroom house about to collapse from drywall and termites. He knew he knew what he was getting into, but considered it a challenge to show his ingenuity and youthful stamina. He put in a new foundation, completely rebuilt the structure, taking a year's hard labor. So to complete his renovation project, his material expenses came to $3,500. So he incurred no labor cost. He triumphantly sold for $12,000 to take a $3,000 monetary profit. So he said that all the time he was working on the house, he worked on Social Security, whereas he had been working for wages. These payments would have stopped if he had hired if he had hired the work. He would have broken even or taken 1,000 or so loss. He seemed to enjoy his expenditure of time and energy, but he could have made a considerably more money by working on a less deteriorated property such as we will choose. There are there are too many guys in basically sound buildings to waste much time on junkers. Make notes and sketches. Now, I am over my hour, just barely. I'm not quite finished with that chapter, but I'll pick up there or start a little in front of where I finished. This is exciting. Um, it's terribly shocking that the difference in prices between 1969 and 2022. Um, Here in Colorado Springs, the median house price is the high 300s to low 400s. I haven't checked this week to see what it is this week, but it's quite a ways up there. It's uh, and you can see this gentleman specialized in light rehabs. He specialized in rehab and hold. So he bought under market rehab to bring it up to about market value, rented it out, and held it. It looks like he refinanced because he does mention taking out refinancing. So he's doing something very close to a burr here. But a burr is possible even with a heavy refinance. So you could look at buying a $200,000 property for $100,000, doing the $50,000 rehab it requires to bring it up to that $200,000, and then refinance the 70% of maybe even 75%, because actual regular home mortgages usually finance up to 75%. So if you shop around, you can probably get 75% of your after value return. Okay, so that's considerably more than you put in it. So that puts a little bit of profit in your pocket. Um, and because it's possible to get hard money lenders to finance 70% of the purchase and 70% of the rehab, or technically it's. And this is why I keep referring to bigger pockets. This book is based on concepts. We only want concepts from this. We don't want to grab numbers, uh, projected growths. I haven't gone and looked at what the government statistics showed as the projected growth for these various states were compared to what they actually were from 1969 to 1985. But there were government looking at projections for state growth, for population growth, and things like that in this book. These numbers are way outdated. I will probably on the own, and maybe I'll be able to have a discussion on one of my podcasts. I don't know if I'll do it as a live or a recorded one, because I'm experimenting with some ways of recording to upload a video rather than doing live. So you're going to have to watch my channel close to see all the various possibilities I get along the way. I found some exciting things about the fact that YouTube Studio does allow me to download, so I can take each of these videos that I make from these live sessions and then clap them together, edit it to make the books flow smoothly. I may have to reread some of those portions because, as you can see, I stutter a little bit. I stumble over some words that are not as high usage in today's literature as they were in the day of the book being written. So, and then names. Oh my goodness. When you start throwing in names like Munchausen, and that's a name that I was not in practice of saying because it hadn't been around a while. And this put me down right into some serious stumbling. So I may be able to make some adjustments and get that to go to just a little bit. Okay, so while I was talking and stumbling around in the dark, I Googled it, and right now my hometown here in Colorado Springs, where I grew up and I currently live, the typical home value of homes in Colorado Springs is $495, $495,187. This value is seasonally adjusted. Okay. I was looking for something from Pikes Peak Association of Realtors because that might get a little bit better on the Association of Realtors stats. But local news station, one of the local news channels, has an article here showing that the average price of a home has jumped 20% in the past. Whoa, that is. So we've had about a 20% jump in the past year. Stats a little old, so it kind of falls more with the COVID time period. So during the COVID shutdown, prices of homes jumped 20%. And they've actually been doing a little bit better since. Okay, here comes. These are stats that are on a realtor's website based on stats from the Association of Realtors. It says the median home price is currently $441,200, which is an 18.6% increase over the following year. So we are showing a lot of growth here in Colorado. The prices are much higher. So this $10,000 home, you're not going to find one of those anywhere in the country. But there are certain places you can find those extreme rundown properties that need the full rehab for about the $10,000 price range. Most cities include Detroit. There's a lot of technically, it looks like only some really big professionals that are good with solid, complete rehabs, and some locals that know the neighborhoods are doing well with rehab and fix and flip in Detroit. But if the fixer and flipper can get by, then there's a chance that the burr can work, or even possibly wholesale. My my whole thought is that if you don't have the cash to get into the market, because in many cases you need skin in the game, you go hard money. The hard money lender wants you to put some skin in the game. They want to see you've got reason to make sure the deal goes. Now the whole concept as to whether or not they will finance it is based on the value. So the deal has to be a good deal before they're going to finance it, and they want you to have skin in the game or less your experience. So if you've been with them and you flipped 3 deals before, now you want to say, hey, I can't do any deposit. I want you to do the whole amount, but the numbers are good. We'll both make our money. They'll consider doing the 100% finance with no down payment. But you can always do all kinds of things like borrow from your or a partner's 401k, find a partner with enough cash in the bank, whatever. It doesn't matter where your skin in the game comes from. So if it's your father-in-law's life savings and he trusts you enough to look at the numbers and say, hey, this is a good deal. You, me, and the hard money lender are going to make some money on this. Let's jump into it. The truth of the matter is that on a good bird deal, your private lender that gives you your deposit, your hard money lender, and all the contractors are making money on it. There may be a realtor who gets a commission because it was on the MLS. So we may have a realtor who also made money on this. So in fact, we're turning around that in general, we're looking at 3 to 5 people on a flip are in some way making money. Okay, that's putting money into the economy. You hire a contractor to do the carpeting, and he pays 3 wagers, uh, 3 laborers to go actually do the work that he supervises. And those laborers take the money home and feed their families with it. That diverses the dollar throughout the economy. This is why the government gives us tax breaks on real estate. You know, um, you keep hearing tax breaks on real estate called loopholes, and it makes us think that they're we're sneaking in under the wire. No, that's because the government wants to promote people to invest in real estate. So the fact that the homeowner gets a tax break, they can take a depreciation and they can write off some of their interest, if not all of the interest. That seems to change several times in my lifetime, whether they can write it off or some, write all of it off and write off part of it. Okay, but so those tax breaks are there for the individual homeowner that lives in their own home. Um, we had a major factor a few years ago that under one president, a really huge thing went out that people got a very large tax return because they got this extreme tax break if they were a first-time homeowner who went out and bought a home. Um, Technically, it looks to me like right now the discussion of the Build Back Better Act may include such certain things like that in it. So there is a chance that we're going to see more of these tax breaks to get individuals. Okay? Part of that comes from today's generation doesn't even think about owning. Most of them don't want to own. They feel more secure with renting. They're not thinking about the fact that when they're renting, they're paying off somebody else's mortgage. So very few of the younger generation are dreaming of owning a home. Right? But that's better for those of us who want to own rental property. So I'm not fighting either way. I might really advise them to own their own home. Technically, I would say that if you want to invest in real estate, you want to be a real estate investor, you should start with buying your own home. Um, Part of that is because in a few years you can use that first home as a move up. So you live in that first home for 2.5 years, 2 years to get the tax break. So when you sell it, if you've lived in it 2 years, And technically, it's 2 years out of the last 5 or something like that. So you could live in it 2, then get out 3, and rented it out for 3, and so on. So you have to look close at what that is. But if you live it in 2 years consecutive, so buy it, buy it, live in it 2 years, it goes up in value supposedly. There's a chance the market could crash. We're at that precipice right now. There's a chance of a crash. And there's a large number of people, including economists, that are calling for a crash. A lot of experts are calling for a crash. The fear of the crash is more likely to cause the crash than the current economy. So if we do have a crash in the real estate values and they go down for a while, it'll only be for a while but come back up, which is why if you have to live in it 2 years, then rent it out 3 while the price comes back up and the value comes back up. And as long as you meet that criteria, living it 2 out of the last 5, then you're going to be able to sell that without paying any taxes on the profits. If you don't meet that circumstance, say you uh, uh, live in it 2 years, the market is down, so you take a loss to sell it, so you don't want to sell it, so you move out, you rent it to cover the mortgage payment, so you want to cover the mortgage payment, other costs, including management, um, factoring in on the percentage. These are there are calculators on here in pockets to help you figure out what to guesstimate for vacancy and all these capital expenditures that go along with it. So you can do these rent estimate thingies on bigger pockets, which is one of those free resources I keep sending you to. Yes, as a free member, you only get 5 uses of the calculators. But if you upgrade to the $49 a month, you can get unlimited usage. Uh, Technically, I do know one person. This is probably a bit absurd, but I know one person who uh, turns off his premier membership when he doesn't need the calculators. Turns it on, so every 3 or 4 months he pays 1 month's usage and has additional usage of the calculator during that point. That's because this guy is currently flipping. He is not burning. He is flipping, and he can only handle about 2 projects at a time, and it takes between 90 days and 6 months for each project. Okay, and he used up all of his freebies, so he turns on his membership, uses the calculator, uh, uh, finds the next deal he's going for. He may have to use the 4 or 5 calculators to actually find the deal he wants. Uh, and then he turns around and turns off his expenditure because it's just a little bit more than he can currently handle. Um, he is planning on purchasing a year membership because you can get a discount by doing a year membership, and there are discount codes that discount annual membership. You can usually get these by watching webinars on Bigger Pockets, or occasionally some of the individual episodes, like special anniversary episodes or something. They will give you a code, and then that will give you a discount off of your annual membership. So it can be pretty exciting there. So, and again, I'm getting distracted severely. Uh, but the simple thought is that if you don't have the cash to get into a deal, if you don't have the cash to do the down payment to buy your first house, if you don't have the cash to do the down payment on your first house, there are some ways of beating that. First, there is 0% down with the Veterans Administration's loan. So if you or your spouse is a veteran, I keep hearing that extends a little further out. Uh, so that there is a possibility that if your parent is a veteran, you might be able to go on. I don't know how far it extends out. You might have to speak to a veteran under They're not hard to find. So, but, um, it's possible to get a 0% down payment if you're a veteran, whether you're currently active duty or just a veteran in general. You can get a loan secured by the Veterans Administration, 0% down. And they're at a very competitive interest rate. So it's a good deal. So if you don't have the money, but you have the income and the credit, consider that. If you're not the veteran, there are 0% down with USDA loans for rural property. So if you're in a large metropolitan area that you'd like to move outside town, 20-minute drive or so, you probably can qualify for one of those. And you have to check the area. There's a map on USDA.gov. Uh, so you can always go there and check to find out if an area you want to move to is eligible for USDA loans. USDA loans also have a loan that can lend you money to rehab. So you don't have to buy a turnkey move-in property. You could buy a property that you're going to fix up and improve the value on. So USDA has that as an opportunity. They have several different kinds of loans available. If you actually wanted to buy a working farm, raise cattle, or some other crop or something like that, especially if you're mildly uh, qualified to do that, then you can look at some financing for farms, not just housing in the rural area. So here's uh, there are some great loans available in there. Low down payment to zero down payment depending on the loan type. So you have to go through that. In most states, there is first-time home buyer opportunities, grants from government, private agencies, and so on and so forth to cover your down payment. Or uh, in Colorado, you can usually get all your down payment covered, but not your closing costs. You're going to end up having to pay closing costs out of pocket. So you can get it technically TAFA. Has a loan program that gets you into an FHA qualified mortgage. The FHA mortgage required 3% down payment, but TAFA comes up with grants to cover your down payments. All you have to pay is the closing costs. That does put you at between $2,500 and $10,000 on your down payment, depending on what kind of house you buy. Um, Obviously, if you're this tight on a budget that you can't come up with a down payment, you might not have enough income to qualify for a five-bedroom home that has 500,000, um, which you can easily find in many parts of Colorado. But you might be because you are double income and have kids, but you haven't had quite your finger on your spending, so you haven't accumulated savings, but you have the income. You're paying almost that much in rent anyway. So you're not making that big of a change by going in. That's a good possibility. So explore those avenues. In almost every state out there has a new, or what's called a first-time home buyer program. They can get you a lower interest, 3%, or even cover your uh, down payment. Uh, Here in California, we've got several, not just FHA, but several plans. The technicality is your down payment is 3%, but then you can turn around and find a way to get that by grants. So explore those. Your realtor might be able to give you some some ideas of where to go to explore those programs to find out if you're eligible for something. Um, at worst, if you're extremely low income, but have an income and, and have good credit and very little in debt, absolutely very minimal in collections and already in a payment plan on all your collections, you might qualify for something through the Habitat for Humanity program. Habitat for Humanity is a private Christian ministry. They do not discriminate, so you do not have to be Christian to, to do this, but their objective is to provide housing for a portion of the population that is less likely to get it. So I could theoretically see you getting your first house through having to go through something like Habitat for Humanity or whatever it's others, and in the 2 years between while you're living in that house and so on and so forth, come up with some more down payments, start moving on to the other, or pick up something called wholesaling. You might bring in enough cash for you to accumulate your cost for your down payment for your personal residence or your down payment for your first rental. There are all kinds of different methods out there. So if you're interested in this, start exploring, start searching Google to see what options are out. Set some Google alerts about mortgage rates or first-time home buyer programs, and so on. So set those, be smart about what you're doing. Don't just sit there and watch Netflix. Yeah, if you want to watch Netflix, stop being interested in being interested in investing. You're either in this game or you're out. I spent too long in front of the TV watching Netflix and telling myself I was interested in this. I wanted to do this, but I made the excuse that my job, which I considered a ball and chain, and I should not have. I really should have respected it a lot better. I thought my job was keeping me from being able to do real estate. It was keeping me too busy. But it was what I was doing at the time that I wasn't working that was really, truly keeping me from moving on to the next step. Well, now I have changed a lot of my direction. I'm beginning to set some foundations. I'm building those foundations. I am doing certain things on a daily basis. So that I'm regularly watching the real estate market. I'm reading forums in Bigger Pockets. I am digesting Bigger Pockets YouTube episodes like as fast as I can. I am reading or rereading books on real estate like the Burr book, The Buy, Rehab, Rent, Refinance, Repair by David Green. Great book. If you haven't read it, get it. I don't know if it's in libraries or not, but it's very affordable. So check it out on biggerpockets.com. Go to the store, biggerpockets.com/store. Gee, as much as I keep mentioning Bigger Pockets in here, maybe they should be sponsoring me. But we'll get there. Once I listen to a little more, I'm actually working on a book. So maybe I can get them to write the foreword, maybe even be the publisher of that book. It's related to, but not necessarily, truly. Let's have a good fun. The truth of the matter is that I got the book going, and so maybe I really should set some more goals to keep myself consistent on that. But we'll work on it. The day is coming that I will be forced to set my goals or get out of the game. So you put your feet in the water. Sooner or later, you're either going to dive in or you're going to get up and walk away. Well, my toes have been in the water way too long in both real estate and in writing, and so it is time for me to make those decisions. Well, the truth of the matter is, I believe in building multiple streams of income, and the more passive they are, the better. So while writing has an active income because you get income on each book you produce, they actually a good book continues to produce royalties. So there's a passive income from that. So I'm going to work on getting my act together in a lot of things. I do not want to spend the rest of my life stuck on Social Security disability, and that looks like where things are currently headed. And I don't want to find myself there. So I'm working really hard to get my health back together so that maybe I can get back to my job and take it with a more thorough attitude, that I'm not thinking of it as a ball and chain, but thinking of it as an opportunity, a stepping stone to my next progress. Okay, well now at an hour 40 minutes, so I've gone way over, and that's something that kind of drops the visibility on YouTube, because the analytics do watch the length of your average video. They also watch at how many people watch the whole video. So if somebody starts the video and drops out in the first 3 minutes, but you were a hour-long video, that affects the analytics. If somebody watches 2/3 of it, that improves the analytics. So the longer people watch the video, the much better. So if you're actually watching any of my videos, whether you're watching them live or come back to watch them later, I beg of you to subscribe, like, and to watch most of the video. Okay, so I encourage you to do so. You have a wonderful evening. Stay safe.